It's live time. Hey everybody, welcome back to a live stream of Musical Theater Writer Guy. I don't know what this accent is, so we're gonna drop that. But hello everyone. Why is Broadway and everyone struggling right now? What is indeed going on? Yeah, what is even happening in theater right now? Why is Broadway seeming to struggle, but at the same time also seeming to gloss over that fact? And it's not just about Broadway. The struggle is, at this moment, at all levels of theater. The pandemic threw us all for a loop, but the performing arts industries seem to have taken a particularly big hit. I mean, both with the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA being on strike. The, I mean, yes, those are the official strikes at the moment, but we have this year even seen some big Broadway stars speaking out and taking stances against productions, both on the road and in New York City. And honestly, this is just part of the issue. This year's Broadway season kind of felt like a whirlwind with the number of openings and closings, and with many productions closing well before they had hoped and expected, but also not all shows. Some shows actually saw breaking ticket sales records in the holiday season of 2022, while others struggled and then closed early. It was also announced last week that the Public Theater, a staple of downtown New York City, off-Broadway, nonprofit regional theater, famous for launching so many wonderful hits in the canon of musical theater, A Chorus Line and Hamilton probably being two of the more famous ones, but a lot of famous ones, in addition to Shakespeare in the Park, that they just laid off 19% of their staff. 19%. And this is just one of several recent announcements of staff reduction at large nonprofit theaters across the country. And there are also some that have not announced the cuts that they've made. So, plus, in addition to all of this, there has been a slew of major shows closing early. The Great House being the latest with an announcement on Wednesday. So, if it feels to you like the industry is in a little bit of chaos and yet no one really seems to be talking about it, you're not alone. And industry-wide issues affect all of us. They really do. I know many writers and theater makers right now who feel untethered, and that's okay. We're allowed to feel this way. The anxiety is real. So you are not alone, my friends. You are not alone. And although we do not seem to be talking about it collectively, today, we're gonna dive in. But first, hi, hello. If you don't know me, I'm Michael Ratty, aka Musical Theater Writer Guy. I am a musical theater writer, clearly. I teach musical theater writing. I'm a vocal coach. I'm a performer. I'm a musical director. I do a lot of different things. I'm also the founder of the Musical Theater Writing Collective, which is an online / hybrid collective of musical theater writers. It's a space, a warm, affirmative space where people can come and gather together to share their work, find resources, make connections, and make new work, and get feedback on work, and also have the ability to take courses if they so choose. I offer plenty of those. If you're joining me live today, please feel free to say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and of course, feel free to ask questions along the way. If you're joining me on the replay, please also let me know in the comments where you are listening from. Our community is growing every day, and we are extraordinarily international, and I love that. I love that. So please let me know where you're calling in from. Calling? You're not calling. What a weird... My age is showing. There it is. Also, in case you're relatively new to me, I do a live stream or an interview every other week, on the opposite weeks from the regular videos that I release. So if you have topics that you'd like to have me discuss in a live stream, or people you'd like me to interview, let me know. I'm very happy to tailor these moments to what you are all interested in addition to what I'm interested in. At the end of these live streams, when there's time, and if there's people around who would like it, I will do an Ask Me Anything sort of moment. So if you have questions for me, let me know when we get there, and I'll keep you apprised of what's going on. All right, but why this topic and why today? Why this topic? Because no one's talking about it. Or I shouldn't say no one. Not enough people are talking about it. But it's affecting all of us. Why today? Well, this past week, I think, saw a crescendo to the chaos. Not only did SAG-AFTRA join striking at the end of last week, but also we saw IATSE, which is a very large union, almost strike starting today. They didn't yet, but we'll get there. And in addition to that, I've heard some rumblings around the industry of some of the other unions that are interested in potentially striking. And we have to start asking why. And why are these shows closing? And why are large regional theaters making gigantic cuts and laying people off? And why are the smaller theaters struggling to find audience and meet their financial obligations as well as their artistic obligations? There has to be a reason or a set of reasons. So we need to talk about it. Let's dive in. Obviously, in 2020, the entire theater industry came to a screeching halt, as did many industries. We were not alone in that regard. However, unlike many other industries, theater was one of the last to be able to make a return, in large part due to safety questions of gathering live, a large number of people, and a relatively small space, right? Relatively small enclosed space. We had some people in the industry really trying to work hard to figure this out. I will shout out Sammy Canold, the director Sammy Canold, for her work specifically. She went to, where'd she go? Was it Korea? That was leading the way with this, and learned as much as she possibly could about what they were doing to get people back in theaters as quickly as possible, and then brought that knowledge back to us, which was incredibly useful. So, did the late reopening put us behind as an industry? Of course, absolutely it did, but it has also been much slower in returning than a lot of people, I think, predicted or realized that it was going to be. In the meantime, theaters like the Public, which just made that giant 19% layoff cut, have cited their cuts as being necessary due to rising costs and falling revenue, while some Broadway theater makers have also cited supply chain issues and the ease and increase of home live streamed content. And on top of all of that, we can look at the types of shows that audiences are coming to. And these statistics can be seen at the box office as well for films. It's not just theater box office. And see a trend towards something familiar, whether that be the title or a franchise or just the plain old ideas of joy and comfort. So what does this mean for all of us? Let's explore each of these a bit more and let's find out. So I want to tackle the simplest one first. By simplest, I don't mean that it's a simple thing to fix. Just the concept is simpler. Supply chain issues. I don't know if y'all remember in the pandemic when everyone rushed at the beginning to get toilet paper. Hopefully you do remember that. Supply chain, right? That is a big, big issue. Are there still issues in the supply chain? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I know several people working at various levels of this industry at this exact moment, and all of them would acknowledge two things. Number one, yes, supply chain issues are very much a thing right now. And number two, that everything also has a second, third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth solution to it. So even if something that normally they'd be able to get pretty quickly from a reliable supplier is not available because of supply chain issues, there are backup options available. Does that mean that the supply chain delays haven't caused some chaos and increase in costs? No, of course, they absolutely have. But unless I'm missing something huge about the supply chain and its connection to Broadway specifically, and if you're out there and you know something I don't, please let me know. Then I don't think we can consider this one of the major factors to the industry-wide major issues. Definitely a factor. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's one of the major underlying factors. Okay, let's talk about live stream content from home and show programming. Let's talk about these two together, since they're both related to the overall idea of audience comfort. Okay, first and foremost, I do think we need to acknowledge something which we don't do enough in public. We collectively went through a gigantic trauma, and we were never given the proper time and tools to heal before we were then dumped right back into the grind. There was a lot of promise of there will be time and we will take time and changes will be made. But really, if we are looking back to when industry started to pick back up, it was picking back up. It was doing a lot of the same things over again and expecting people to just jump right back into where they had been before the pandemic started. There was no time to heal, no time to grieve, no time to make changes. And I don't just mean this in our industry, obviously. I mean, literally everybody. I don't know of very many companies that gave people the proper time and attention. And I'm not blaming individual companies. I think that is a cultural thing. The government as well should, well, I say should, could have helped us out a bit more with that transition. But I know that it's incredibly frustrating to theaters, producers, and to theater makers that the audiences are leaning at this moment toward comfort in their choices. But I'm going to say something that might feel a little controversial. I mean, this whole live stream may be controversial. We'll see. But I think we all need to give people a little bit more grace. I think we need to give our audience more grace on this. The pandemic not only traumatized the population, but it also set a lot of people off on journeys of self-exploration and self-healing, myself included. Like I'm not accepted from this. And this does change the type of programming that people are interested in engaging with. We have to remember that. So when people choose to stay home, cuddled up in comfy pants on the couch, to stream a TV show that does not challenge their sense of identity, I have a really hard time blaming them for doing that. I mean, I like to sit home on my couch and cuddle up and have some snacks and some wine and watch something that is enjoyable, silly, stupid, familiar. It's a useful tool. In the depth of a difficult winter, I began watching RuPaul's Drag Race, like this year in January. And I've kept it going through the spring because, well, and now we're in summer, still going, because right now, this is just what works for me. There's a lot of other stuff going on in my life that's hard enough. So I'm finding comfort in my entertainment. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I really think we need to be kinder and a little more empathetic generally to those choosing to leave their to those choosing not to leave their homes at every given opportunity. We were kind of trained out of that habit during the pandemic. It's a hard one to get back into. And not for nothing, many theatrical experiences don't feel like you're doing something comfortable. And I'm not even necessarily talking about what's on stage. I mean, sure, that too. And on that point, like, for instance, I did see The Grey House a couple of weeks ago, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily a show that you could go to for comfort. It's spooky. It's weird. Makes you jump, makes you think, makes you question, right? An enjoyable experience, had a great time. But didn't choose it knowing that it'd be a night of comfort. When I saw Some Like It Hot last night, that was a show that was going to be fun and comfortable and entertaining, right? I knew what I was walking into, and I was excited to walk into that because I could use more of that in my life right now. I think a lot of people feel that way. But I'm not even talking about what's on stage necessarily. I mean the experience of going out, also followed by the front of house experience. I've heard many people say that they feel like they're not feeling taken care of right now when they go to New York theaters at the moment, but almost more like sheep or like children being scolded or like some sort of nuisance to the staff, which is not lovely to see. I do want to recognize two things there. Number one, the staff are people too. Not everyone can be having a good day and be feeling good and make you feel good. So there's that. And number two, I just want to acknowledge the staff at the Schubert Theater from last night. They were lovely. I had a great front of house experience. And I myself have had a couple particularly awful front of house experiences over the past few years. I'm not going to lie, when that happens, it really does wear on the audience. It's not the most comfortable thing. Plus, like I said, we were all trained to stay home during the pandemic. So staying home feels more normal than it ever did. I see this changing and I do see people going out more, but it's a slow process. Grace is all I'm asking here. Okay, so, hi, if you're just joining me, I'm Mike O'Reilly, musical theater writer guy. We are talking today about why everything, Broadway, all of theater, everyone involved in this industry, why it all feels so chaotic, what's going on. There are a lot of factors to explore. So the other part of this little point here that I want to talk about is what shows audiences are choosing to see. Obviously, we kind of started to talk about it a little bit. But if ever there's a time to litmus test audiences and grosses, like if we're going to look at the spread and see what people are seeing, it's the holiday time. The perfect time to look at that litmus test. Tourism is obviously not back to full in New York City. And that was true in 2022's holiday season, but the holidays always see the biggest surge. Not only do I know that just like from being a part of the industry, but I bartended in theaters for a year and a half when I first got to New York, and boy, I know that life. I know what that surge looks like. So during the 2022 holiday season, The Lion King broke a new box office record. And the other shows that saw large audiences and grosses were Wicked, The Music Man, Harry Potter, and Funny Girl. Those five nailed it this holiday season. Nailed it. Meanwhile, shows like Top Dog Underdog and Between Riverside and Crazy barely scraped by, as K-pop and Ain't No More both closed during this period. I think we can see two big factors here. Looking at the list of shows, I can't help but see the racial disparity in the materials. How much was that a conscious factor? I cannot say. I don't know. But it seems to be a factor. And especially since the two musicals that closed are upbeat, joyous, fun musicals. K-pop, Ain't No More. Like, that is entertainment. That is good comfort stuff to go see in a theater. The other major issue here, of course, is also the size of the brand and the familiarity. The shows that saw major box office boosts were familiar properties. Two are actually the most profitable artistic properties in the world, Lion King and Wicked. Those are multi-billion-dollar properties. Billion! And the other two, these are Gilded Age classics with familiar names in the leading roles. So of course they did. They did great. It seems to be, now I don't have data on this, okay, but it seems to be that the current audiences on Broadway look like they did before our recent golden age resurgence of musical theater. The 2010s, especially the late 2010s, saw what may in hindsight end up being called a golden age of musical theater. But the audiences seem to look more like they did before that period, which is predominantly white, middle and upper class folks, and tourists here for a quick Broadway experience. Is that necessarily bad? No. But it does seem to be the case right now, and that changes who's going to see what. The reason I say it's not necessarily bad is because we do have audiences coming, which is good. We do need audience, but diversity in the audience, and especially diversity and accessibility, equity and inclusion, all being taken into consideration. Is this great, this subset? No. Now, this also doesn't mean that all shows are struggling. Okay, other shows that cater to this demographic that we are currently seeing in the audiences, and that experience seem to be doing quite well, namely Kimberly Akimbo and Shucked. And I'd even throw Some Like It Hot in there, which isn't necessarily catering to that experience, but that demographic of audience is loving Some Like It Hot. And all three of these are relatively feel good, and they seem very welcoming as shows to any audience, but especially that core audience that has returned to the Broadway and can afford it. So what does this mean for Broadway programming? In the short term, means that anything not catering to this particular set of demographics is likely to struggle hard. Big struggles. In the long term, means that Broadway, and in a trickle down to most theaters across the country, have a deeper rooted problem of the relationship between the audience and finances, which we knew. This is not new, right? That is not news to anybody. And before we dive deeper into that financial piece, I'm gonna take a moment, gonna pause. Feel like I'm a little bit on soapbox today. Not that I'm mad about that. Again, we need to talk about these things. But I just want to know, how are we all doing? Do you find this type of video interesting and validating? Let me know if you'd like more type of content like this in the future. I haven't been relatively controversial on this channel before. I don't think so, at least. But I do feel like there are going to be some feelings about these topics from a lot of people. I think, first of all, what I think doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What I'm interested in is the conversation. We need to be having conversation. The only way things are going to change is through acknowledgement and conversation. But if you are enjoying this kind of content or finding it validating, please give it a little like so it can spread to more people like yourselves. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Also, I'm going to take this moment, this little breather moment here, to let you know about something new I'm doing. I'm now offering free 30-minute Zoom calls for anyone writing or creating a piece of musical theater, which is likely all of you, maybe not all of you, most of you, I don't know. So if you're looking for some advice or resources or just to get some of your questions answered, you can head on over to michaelrowdy.com and schedule a 30-minute call, a nice little free call. I just like meeting people. I like helping people. So this is a new little offer. We'll see how it goes. I will pin a comment after the live stream ends for the replay with the website page for that. So should be in the description below as well. Okay. Yes, have a little sip of water here. Onward. Let's go back to our discussion here on the current industry struggles of Broadway and theater on the whole. If you're just joining, that's what we're talking about today. Welcome. Welcome. It's a cheery topic. And also, don't forget, we do an Ask Me Anything at the end. So if you're here live with me and you want to ask me questions about anything, we'll hit that spot too. If you don't have questions, that's cool. All right, let's break down the financial conversation into its various components because it's pretty complicated. Number one, rising costs. Okay, yeah, there's a current financial crisis in this country and, well, across the world as well. That's contributing to the rising costs for everyone. Let's just acknowledge this as being true. It's true. Costs are on the rise. That being said, where can we find ways to cut down on costs that doesn't cut down on people? That last part, that second part, that is the most important part. Because I'm not talking about cutting costs by hiring fewer people or cutting wages or engaging in less safe practices just for the sake of money. That's a no, that's a non-starter, right? Some productions and companies have engaged in these practices, and I feel no qualms in saying that this is wrong. That is the wrong way to go about saving money. It's not doing anyone any favors in the long run. May look good on paper to start, but we got to do more. Got to do better. I look at some of the gigantic shows that have opened recently. Like New York comes to mind first. And I wonder where the bloat could have been pulled back. I mean, yeah. There are things that occur to me as an audience member. Obviously, I'm not in the financial books. I have no idea what's actually going on. But there are things that look to me like bloats that probably could have gone to save some money. And I mean, if you're still here with me, you know that I believe in centering the story and storytelling above all else in musical theater. And I think the biggest question to ask here when trying to save money, because that's where we're at financially right now, is what is necessary to tell this story versus what is nice to have. I don't think I need to harp deeper on this point, but I will say that I think we've gotten used to specifically Broadway being a place where we get to see the nice to haves and not just what is necessary to tell a story. But that doesn't mean it has to be that way always and forever. If we are going through a financial crisis, which we are, how can we have Broadway still be wonderful without the nice to haves and only using what is necessary? Does that diminish the art? I don't think so. Hello, the Artist Adventure. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right. So, like, can we just agree to spend our money wisely and effectively? I mean, probably not. I don't know if we can all agree on that, but I'm in. Hopefully you're in. All right, let's talk about falling revenue. This one, I think, hits at something much deeper, which is being highlighted right now in our current financial environment. It's been there, but now we're seeing it. If audiences aren't coming, there is less revenue, period, right? Audiences buying tickets and then being inside the theater and buying other things like merchandise and drinks. That is the revenue. That's where the money comes in. We need butts and seats. Obviously, we've hit on this a little bit already. But something that happens commonly these days in response to fewer audiences is, drum roll free, please, raising ticket prices. I bet you guessed that before I said it, because we all see it happening. Ticket prices are skyrocketing, and they have been, right? Now, does raising ticket prices actually net you more? I'm not sure that we have the numbers on this, but my hunch is, just based upon what I've seen over the past 15 years, that in the short term, perhaps, yes. In the long term, perhaps no. If you raise the price of tickets, you are making it more difficult for people to come see your show. So they will choose to see fewer shows, spending less money at the theater overall. And the shows they choose to spend money on will likely be the more known entities, the familiar things, the comfortable things, all that stuff that we already covered. Not to mention that people who are not generally theater goers are going to be far, and I do mean far, less likely to spend their money and try it out, both because of the prohibitive cost of the ticket, but also because high prices feel, and are, if we're being honest, elitist. They are gatekeeping. And y'all know how I feel about gatekeeping. No, none of it. Why are we keeping gates? Ridiculous. So you may see a short-term bump in revenue as people who were going to buy tickets anyway still buy them at a higher price. But those on the fence are more likely to hop off the fence. And everyone else left in the dust. The demographic that I said is coming right now, that pre-Golden Age demographic that was coming and is back and still coming, they were going to buy tickets anyway. What happened to everyone else? We've gotten rid of the accessibility for everybody else. And like, honestly, I kind of feel like I'm in the everybody else as well. I don't see many shows these days. I saw 2 recently. That was big for me. I really haven't been in Broadway theaters much, period. I live in New York. I love going to Broadway shows, but it used to feel affordable. It doesn't feel affordable anymore. And this has been a huge problem in theater, especially New York theater, but for a very, very long time. Our financial model is, to put it bluntly, not sustainable. It isn't. We know this. We even openly acknowledged this during the pandemic. This is not news. And yet here we are engaging in the same practice as though it's somehow going to be different now. Well, it's not. Ew. I mean, y'all, it's common knowledge in this industry that only 1 out of every 5 Broadway shows recoups its investment. 20%. Those are pretty bad odds. You essentially need to go into investing in a Broadway show as though you're giving away your money, not investing it. And the foundational financial structure that we have and we utilize is a very large part of the problem here, which is just being amplified right now by our current climate of audiences and finances. Are there potential solutions to this? Yes. Heard many posed or proposed over the years by professionals, by non-industry professionals, by people like Ken Davenport, whose office runs most of the studies that we have on Broadway. Why aren't there enough studies being done? Why don't we have all of the data that we need? Where is it? Who is doing it besides Ken? And thank you, Ken, for doing all the polling, for pulling the data, for creating the sort of spreadsheets that you have created over the years. But I haven't seen a lot of steps taken. And worse, I haven't seen most of these issues even acknowledged in a big public way. And this is a problem, which leads me all the way back around to you. Well, to us, right? When our industry is in trouble at the highest levels, this trickles down through every tier of production and ultimately to every single artist in the theater industry. You are not alone in feeling untethered or unsure or chaotic or anxious. This is where we are right now. And I want to make sure that someone is actually saying this aloud and validating you and how you feel or may feel. You may not feel like this today, but in a week's time, you might. IATSE did not strike yet. It's a tentative compromise. It has to be voted on. Will they strike? I don't know. It's possible. Will the other unions that are rumbling about talking about striking, will they strike? It's possible. Could our industry shut down at the highest level again? Maybe, right? So this anxiety that you're feeling, it's real. This is where we're at. And we cannot continue as though everything is just fine. We cannot bury our heads in the sand and say, no, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because it's not working. It never really worked. And now we see in a big way, it's not working. It's not fine. Our industry is very much that meme of the dog sitting at the table with the house on fire saying it's fine. So let's collectively acknowledge the issues at hand in the hopes that we can find solutions together. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on these topics. What are y'all feeling? What do you think might be useful? Where can we improve? And what can we do in the meantime? Our industry is ultimately built upon community. We have to be a community in order to put on theater. So the community should drive the answers to these questions. All right, my friends, I'm stepping off my soapbox for a moment. The remainder of our time can be an Ask Me Anything. And so if you have questions and you're here, please ask away. We have a comment here. So the artist adventure, the thing that's hurting them the most, I think, is they're trying to go against cost and demand, right? Demand is going down, but they're bringing up the price. They need to cut down costs somewhere. I would agree with that. Why can't I see the entire comment? That's strange. And the bottom line is someone is going to get destroyed on the stick. Yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, this is true. We are at a time right now where, unfortunately, we seem to be focusing only on this idea of supply and demand and the idea of dynamic pricing as well, right? I mean, the reason that I was even able to see the Gray House because my ticket to Some Like It Hot was covered. Actually, I went with the Broadway Maven, who has been here on the channel during our live streams. He's not here today because he's currently moderating a panel on Stephen Sondheim at Broadway Con. But we met up for dinner last night and we went to see the show together, which was lovely. But the only reason I was able to buy tickets with the Grey House was because it's the summer slump. I happened to see a no-fee ticket that was a low enough price I could actually afford. I was like, yes, I want to see this. So I bought it, right? But the supply and demand, if that is the only space where our focus is, we're all in trouble. That's not enough. Do you think, hey, Zach Downing, nice to see you. Do you think more shows should go to the off-Broadway or off-Broadway route? No, not as they currently are. Like those, if Broadway isn't sustainable, off-Broadway is even less sustainable. Ken Davenport did some great podcasts on this back in the day and really broke down what that financial model looks like. Off-Broadway is not a place to make money. You just don't make money there. The exceptions are very, very few and far between. It's extraordinarily expensive. And if you look at the expense needed to put on an off-Broadway show versus what you can be projected to take back in, it's way worse than Broadway. As far as the off-Broadway model, those theaters are small. I don't know if that's a good answer. Off-Broadway tends to be for more experimental things, quote unquote, experimental things that are less commercial. I don't necessarily think that that's the route. It's possible. I have a dream. I have many dreams, but I have a dream that there could be another way to, not to replace what we currently have necessarily, but something adjacent where we could have other theaters of a certain size that are not inside Manhattan that are doing high quality work under a different model. Maybe I'll say more about that one day, but not ready quite yet. Now, I don't think going to off-Broadway and off-Broadway is going to solve the problem, unfortunately. Oh, but good question. I appreciate that thought. I'm going to sip some water here, see if any other questions or thoughts come in from y'all. And I do appreciate you being here today. Very, very much so. I'm wondering if some smaller production by newer companies might get more spotlight, maybe online. It's possible. That's definitely possible. I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day who was lamenting to me about wishing that live streaming was figured out in a better way for Broadway. And I think I shocked her when my response was, yeah, I mean, if I could live stream something that's actively happening right now in Manhattan, but I just can't get there tonight physically, if I could live stream that show, that performance of that show from my couch, I would do it. I would see so many more shows. So many if they were actively being live streamed. Can you imagine the accessibility that would open up? Also, would that prevent me from going and seeing a show in person? No, I'm always going to want to go in person. In person is the best way to see a show. That is how we experience theater, right? We've seen that pro shots, really good pro shots of shows, actually increase ticket prices, not diminish them. Excuse me, not prices. Increase the amount of tickets sold instead of diminish them, right? I think the same thing would happen if we were able to live stream these shows to people's homes while they were happening. It would just be a delight to actually go. But if I could, for a reduced ticket price, like with 5-minute warning, you're like, yeah, you know what I want to watch tonight? I haven't seen Wicked in a long time. That sounds like a lot of fun. Like, you want to watch Wicked tonight? Let's sit on the couch. Let's buy our, whatever it is, $25 live stream ticket and stream it to the TV. Great. That prevent me from seeing it in person with a ticket I can afford? No, it would not. But where was I going with this? What was the question? Oh, just about using online models. Yeah, I do think that there is a lot of opportunity there that may not be being explored right now. I wonder, how can it be? Also, not for nothing, I'm likely to throw more of my money at a show if I can live stream it. Right? I saw Kimberly at Kimbo. Am I probably going to go back and see it one more time live? I think so. But would I also have already seen it a second time? Yes. Just a thought. The Logos Theater has pro shots available for most of their productions, and I love it. Yeah, pro shots are great. Pro shots are wonderful. Productions that I've missed, being able to watch a pro shot really makes me happy. And for shows that I love and just wanted to revisit, I don't know. I think there's a lot of joy to be found in the online options, the online models. And part of me wonders, like, is there a world in which we utilize the Met Opera model, which, like this idea of taking the pro shots and then streaming them live to movie theaters across the country? That's a reduced price, but you get to go see it on a big screen and have the experience of the pro shot of the show. Maybe. I don't know. Good thoughts, though. I am going to pause again, see if any other thoughts or questions come in here. As always, no one is obligated. We can also talk about other topics too if you have other questions. If not, that's cool. It's a Friday in summer. Hopefully y'all are doing something fun this weekend. Or relaxing. Or both. Who's to say? I'm hoping to see a lake in a couple of days. That's my plan. I need some nature. I love the city, don't get me wrong, but I need some nature. All right. Looks like maybe we are out of questions for today. So I will say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. Oh, we do have another question. Hold on one moment before I wrap up. Also, I was wondering, for someone who doesn't know much about music theory, do you think it'd be good to start with music, with lyrics or melody when writing a song? Well, I don't think not having a knowledge of music theory prevents you from either route. I think you can go either direction. I'd say first and foremost, know what your song is about. Know who is going to be singing it and why. Know what the journey is, where we're starting, where we're ending. Know what kind of structure you want to be utilizing, which doesn't take music theory knowledge, just takes musical theater song structure knowledge. And then from there, I don't know what comes first to you. Is it the melody? Do you hear a melody in your head first and then you want to put lyrics to it? Or do you want to write your lyrics first? Is that what comes more naturally, to which you can have a composer put a melody? I don't know. For me, I kind of write my melodies and my lyrics together. Even when I'm the lyricist on a project and have a composer, I will still sit down and write both at once. But then I won't tell my composer what the melody is that I came up with. I'm just going to hand over my lyric and see what they come up with. And that's always very exciting for me because usually I'm delighted and surprised in a good way by what they come up with, which is more interesting than what I have. Right? That's the joy of the collaborative part. But I don't think it really matters so much starting with melody or lyric. I'm sure there are people out there who would disagree with me on pretty much everything. I mean, here we are. That's the way of the world. Good question. Good question. I will pause one more time, see if there are any more questions coming in. And also while I'm here, I will say I am very, very glad I saw Some Like It Hot. I'm also very, very glad that I already had a ticket for that one, and we'll be seeing it again. We'll be seeing it a second time September from a different vantage point. was a good show. It happened so fast that I couldn't quite put all my thoughts together on it. I want to start doing show reviews here. So let me know if that would be interesting to you. I've not done any of that yet, but I've toyed with the idea. Anywho, thank you all for being here once again. You all are fantastic. This community exists because of you. So let me know if I can do anything for y'all. You can book that 30-minute free call with me. You can check out any of the other stuff upcoming at michaelryan.com. And my friends, I will see you again soon. So goodbye, everyone. Cheers.